Good morning. If everybody can find their seats, it's fantastic to see all of you here this morning, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 30th Annual Energy Summit. I'm Dan Haley. I'm the President and CEO of the Colorado Oil and Gas Association. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, I'm excited to welcome you to our annual conference. Our conference actually began back in 1988. And back then it was known as the Gas Conference. It has certainly grown over the years and changed, much like all of us have. And so if you notice that little clip from Beetlejuice there, that was a popular movie in 1988. We're going to try to throw it back throughout the conference, back to 1988, and bring you back to that year. Our conference theme this year is growth, expectations, opportunities. It reflects the tremendous gains that our industry has made in recent years as we have emerged from this downturn. The oil and natural gas industry in the United States is now the world's leader. But with this new mantle of global leadership comes expectations and opportunities both here in Colorado and abroad. In our two-day conference, you'll hear from industry leaders and from our state's leaders. And tomorrow at lunch, we're going to get a chance to hear from the next governor of Colorado, as both Walker Stapleton and Jared Polis will be joining us for lunch tomorrow. We'll also talk about some of the external threats that our industry is now facing at the ballot box. And we will explore the ways that we can all be engaged in this fight. And it really is a fight for our livelihoods. Our final session tomorrow begins at 4:15, and we're gonna talk about what it looks like this fall at the election and the ballot box, and what we can all do to ensure the future of our industry in Colorado. So please come back for that last final session tomorrow at 4:15. In this conference, we will also explore the growth opportunities that are afforded to our industry, the expectation that comes with leadership, and the opportunities to provide a cleaner energy future, a safer industry, and a better world for all of us. None of this over the next 2 days would be possible without all of our sponsors. So please thank them if you see a sponsor. They'll have a badge on, it'll say sponsor underneath them. Thank them for what they do for our industry. And now I'd like to introduce our first speaker to you, somebody who would like to welcome you all to Denver. First elected in 2011, Mayor Michael Hancock is Denver's 45th mayor. In the past 7 years, he and his administration have eliminated the city's budget deficit, fostered a diverse economy, and restored much-needed services that were lost in the recession. And to keep with the theme from 1988, you may not know this, but in 1988, our mayor was traveling with the Denver Broncos to their Super Bowl, not as a water boy or as a teammate, but as the mascot of the Denver Broncos, as Huddles. No joke, our mayor, Michael Hancock.
Good morning, and thank you all for that, and thank you, Dan, I think, for that introduction. Would you all join me in thanking Dan and his entire team at COGA for, once again, successfully launching the 5th largest energy summit in the country. Thanks again, Dan, and congratulations on the success of this summit. I know that this is the launching breakfast, or at least morning meeting, and I know that it will be a successful summit. I was looking just at the lineup of speakers. You got a great panel coming in just a few moments. I had a chance to meet them in the back. I know the governor, the future governor of the state of Colorado is coming up today. This is just going to be a great opportunity to talk about one of the most powerful and dynamic driving forces in our local and state economy. I am proud to stand here once again to welcome you, all of our oil and gas and energy leaders from around the state of Colorado to Denver. We want to recognize and acknowledge really the role you play in helping to keep our economy strong in our great city. You know, Colorado in general benefits greatly from the oil and gas and energy sectors. In Denver, it is not lost on us that you helped to really snatch this city from the grips of the economic recession just over 10 years ago. Today, we are proud to acknowledge the fact that the energy sector creates some 20 to 25,000 jobs in our local economy. For every one job you create, 4 to 5 times that is created in our local economy. We also acknowledge the fact that the average salary is over $200,000 in the energy sector here in Denver, which brings your direct economic impact to over $1.2 billion a year. So Denver continues to be, and I do work hard to ensure, we remain one of the nation's top energy cities, both for traditional oil and gas sector as well as our renewable wind and solar sectors. Our energy industry will always play an important role who we are here in Colorado and who we are here in Denver. We take a great deal of pride in the fact that nearly 3,500 firms are doing business. These are fossil fuel and clean tech companies doing business right here in Denver. And we know that we benefit well from the energy sector here in Denver. You are a tremendous partner, not only in the job sectors, but also with helping us what we do in terms of our oil and gas production out at Denver International Airport, a solar array, and of course utilization of natural gas in our power vehicles that we have, powering our vehicles that we have for the City of Denver fleet. There and everywhere here in Denver, we are working together to create the best place to live, and you all are helping us to create that here in Denver. We want to continue for folks to talk about Denver being that best place to live in the country. Our energy conservation practices, those efforts in which you've been a partner with, from solar within our affordable housing sector to smart transportation. You all are stepping up and helping us to help figure out some of these very complex issues, and we thank you for that. I want to tell you something, just to give you a snapshot of how you really have helped play a role beyond the job creation and sustainability. I'll never forget that when I was running for mayor 8 years ago, and I walked into an executive's office, an oil and gas executive's office, and he reminded me the role that natural resources play here in our city, in the state of Colorado. He reminded me of the jobs that were being created. And as a result, we were able to stabilize the state and not fall into the depths of the recession as many states did during the recession, because you helped keep this state humming. Today, as one of the most vibrant, economically vibrant states in the country, we can applaud our energy sector for helping us to stabilize ourselves, but also helping us to launch even more powerfully in this new economy. And so while you're here today, I'm excited about some of the ideas that will come from your conversations. I want to thank you for what you've done for Colorado and for Denver in the past, and what you're going to continue to do for Denver and for the state of Colorado going forward. God bless you, and enjoy the rest of your summit.
Thank you, Mayor Hancock. Thank you very much for being here today. Now I'd like to introduce you to one of the people who made this conference possible today. As some of you know, our previous conference director, Sarah Sandberg, left Koga in February for a great new job at DCP Midstream. And in May, Koga welcomed its new Vice President of Operations and Conference Director, Sarah Reynolds. And Sarah jumped into this role with both feet, took a conference that was in the planning stages, and helped produce everything you will see and experience here over the next 2 days. She's already made herself a critical and valuable leader on our Koga team, and I'm excited for all of you to meet her over the next couple of days. So I'm going to introduce her. When you see her around, she'll be busy, but please say hello. Let's right now, if you could just give her a warm welcome to our oil and gas industry, Sarah Reynolds.
Wow, I even got walk-up music. That was kind of awesome. Thank you. So thank you, Dan, for that wonderful introduction, and thank all of you for your very warm welcome over the past few months. It certainly has been a lot of hard work, but it's nice to finally see it come to fruition here. I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge the Koga team. It really is a team effort to put on a conference of this scale, and I just want to thank them for all of their hard work and, frankly, their patience with me as I've been learning more about you as an industry and certainly more about this conference. I also want to thank our steering committee. They are the brains of the operation in terms of helping us prioritize that content that is of most relevance right here, right now for this industry. So thank you to our steering committee. And of course, thank you to our two conference co-chairs, Matt Wurzbacher and John Harpole, who helped lead that steering committee effort. And as Dan mentioned, I really can't let the opportunity pass without thanking Sarah Sandberg myself. Sarah certainly made this Energy Summit the success that it is today. She worked several years to build this conference up, but like every good leader, she understands the importance of continuity. And so I have very big shoes to fill, but I'm very grateful that Sarah left such a fabulous roadmap for me to begin with. So thank you so much, Sarah, for your hard work in making this conference a success as well. So I will just touch briefly on our theme and just what to expect over the next couple days. Of course, it is our 30th anniversary, and there is something about anniversaries. First of all, they make us feel kind of old. I have several staff members who are not born in 1988, so I'm definitely feeling my age right now. But they do something that's more important than that. They make us reflective. They make us think about our shared history, our collective experiences that really provides context to the issues that we're dealing with today, as well as the issues that we're going to be dealing with in the future. And so you're going to see that throughout our conference, that reflective nature as we address what's here and now, but then what also we are expecting over the next several years. We have a lineup of wonderful sessions here in our general session space, but I do want to also highlight that in our expo, we will have the Colorado Legislator Q&A this morning during our networking break, and then this afternoon we're going to be hearing from Julie Murphy with the COGCC. So it's not just what's going on here in the general session space, but also what's going on in the expo. So certainly take advantage of those opportunities. For those of you who are first-time attendees, at 1:45, we are going to have a first-time attendee networking event at the Koga booth as well. So great opportunity to just meet some of your colleagues today and just get to know more about this conference and what's available. I also want to highlight that our lunch today with Robert Bryce is definitely a can't-miss session. It's going to be fascinating to hear about his work and some of the new findings out of his documentary and some of the books that he's been working on. So with that, I am going to go ahead and introduce our panel. We are so fortunate today to have an exceptional panel to start our session, and it's going to be moderated by Amy Harder. So I'm going to have Amy come up along with the rest of the panel, and I'm going to introduce Amy, and then she'll introduce all of our panelists. Amy Harder is one of the top national energy and climate change reporters in the U.S. and considered to be uniquely balanced and influential journalist with respect across the entire spectrum. She covers these issues in a regular column at Axios called Harder Line. And in her column, she reports on both trends and exclusive scoops, but also distills that information into an understandable format, especially energy and climate issues, so that the folks outside of the industry can understand them. Previously, she covered the same issues for the Wall Street Journal and was based out of Washington, D.C., and before that, the National Journal. She's a frequent journalist that appears on PBS NewsHour, MSNBC, CBS, and NPR, as well as many other media outlets. And she's originally from Washington State and received a BA in journalism with honors from Western Washington University. So please join me in welcoming Amy Harder and our panel.
Thank you, Sarah, for that great introduction. It is great to be back here for a third time, I think. I moderated panels for Koga and this conference when I was at National Journal, Wall Street Journal, and now Axios, so it's great to be here. If you haven't heard of Axios, we're a new media company just a year and a half old, and we're changing the way journalism is done, so I encourage you to go to our website and learn more about it. Following with Dan's theme of talking about how things have changed in pop culture and otherwise over the last 30 years. Since the first year that Koga held this conference, Colorado's oil production has increased more than 400%. Natural gas production has increased more than 500% in about that same time span. Other notable things from 1988, the top Billboard songs included Red, Red Wine and Every Rose Has Its Thorn. I can only hope that those songs will be played at tonight's opening party. But back to more serious matters. We have a great panel here that I will introduce in just a moment. But in addition to the significant increase in oil and gas production over the last 30 years, we've also seen so many other changes. Climate change is becoming a mainstream concern, which is partly fueling a lot of the challenges in opposition to infrastructure, which is our topic that we're discussing today. And of course, a huge ebb and flow in energy markets and oil and natural gas prices. And so I also want to encourage you to join the conversation on Twitter as #Koga2018. Our panelists here, and each of them will give a couple of minutes remarks, and then we'll have a panel discussion. And there's some note cards on the table, and if you want to ask us questions, the panelists' questions, be sure to write that down and raise your hand, and there's people going around to pick those up, and then I'll be incorporating them into our discussion. But to my immediate left, we have Bill Crawford, Chief Financial Officer of High Point Resources, Crystal Heater, the President of Natural Gas Transportation at Tallgrass Energy Partners, Wouter van Kempen, President and CEO of DCP Midstream, and Charlie Beetrell, the Manager of Curitin Midstream. And so, Bill, do you want to say a few remarks?
Yes, thank you. My name is Bill Crawford. I'm with High Point Resources. Sorry, this is a little feedback here. And High Point Resources is a new company that was formed with the merger of Bill Barrett Corporation and Fifth Creek that happened in March. And we are a DJ Basin company that focuses on the high oil cut rural communities. That really gives us a strategic advantage, we think, because we're outside of the populace and local government control. We're an upstream company, and we're focused on operationally and applying technology to drive high rate of returns from our oil drilling wells. And we manage our capital resources to have a balance sheet to be able to do that. And all of these factors, I think, we influence how we think about midstream and marketing and who we partner with. And because we're very good at finding and developing the natural gas and oil, but we need to make sure that we can find an end use for that and a home for those and a market for all of those. And that we think of that in the short, medium, and long-term horizons and make sure it fits with our development plans, our balance sheet capabilities, et cetera. And at our scale, we're a relatively small company. We know we can't drive global dynamics, but we do recognize all of the big picture as well as local and medium-term concerns and factor all of that in. And the good news is, I think that the DJ is a great place to develop oil and natural gas because you do have good partners in the midstream and marketing arena, and we work with all of these people here.
Great, Crystal.
Thank you. Crystal Heater, I'm the president of the Natural Gas Transportation segment at Tallgrass Energy. Great. Tallgrass has a presence across the full value chain with our water supply, sourcing, gathering, recycle, and disposal, our oil and gas gathering, delivery, and transportation. We have set out with an initiative, and I believe a reputation now, to say yes more than no and create value with our customers rather than extract value from them. All of our business segments touch the DJ Basin. We support the production efforts with our water division, and then primarily with our oil and gas transportation out of the basin. Some of you may be aware of a recent open season that our oil group has launched relative to the Seahorse project, which is an extension of the Pony Express pipeline. We're very excited about this opportunity. We're looking at a potential capacity to transport 800,000 barrels of crude to the Gulf. That is anticipated for a third quarter of 2021 in service. On the gas side, and a little closer to my area, the Cheyenne Connector pipeline is fully supported. We have two wonderful customers behind that, one of which is here, DCP, and Anadarko, I'm sure, here in attendance. And that is a new 36-inch pipeline, 70 miles up to the Cheyenne hub. Long overdue, desperately needed alternative and bringing competition to the basin. We are looking at a third quarter, October 1st of 19 in service. And that will take gas up to the Rockies Express Cheyenne hub, which is changing entirely. Historically on REX, gas could not come on to the pipeline at Cheyenne. That is now changing. Cheyenne Connector will be the first gas coming on there and have the opportunity to redeliver to approximately 6 BCF of other interconnected pipes at that location, including all 3 of Tallgrass's regulated pipelines. Not the least of is Rockies Express. REX can take gas both in the east and west direction, has the capability to reach over 40 delivery points and approaching over 20 BCF of delivery capacity on a 1.8 BCF pipe. So lots of optionality. We're very excited that there's going to be some new demand off of REX with the recent approval of the SPIRE certificate, or receipt of the SPIRE certificate for a 400 million a day build into St. Louis. So a lot of opportunity that we can bring to the DJ Basin producers. We'll talk more about many of the challenges that we're all facing. We have the regulatory aspects that are influenced obviously by the political dynamics going on in our state as well as our nation. And then in addition, the commitments and order of commitments that come along in many of our aspects of the business.
Great, thank you. Wouter?
Wouter van Keppen, I'm the Chairman, President, and CEO for DCP Midstream. Before starting, I want to acknowledge Dan, Sarah, the entire KOGA staff for putting this event up, and congratulations with the 30-year anniversary. Also want to give my thanks to the KOGA board members and for the leadership that they show every single day. So thank you for that, and thanks for everyone being here in attendance. DCP Midstream, we operate in 16 different states. We're, I believe, the largest gas processor in the country, the largest NGL producer in the country. We are the 3rd largest operator of NGL pipelines in the country. We're a fairly sizable company. We're a Fortune 500 company, number 344 on the Fortune 500. And we operate here in the DJ Basin, but we're operating in many of the other basins in this country, in the Permian, in the Eagle Ford, in the Mid-Continent, the Stack, the Scoop, and have a very large logistics business as well. Here in the DJ Basin, we recently, a couple of weeks ago, put the Mewbourne 3 plant online, some processing capacity that is desperately needed. It's a 200 million a day plant. It gives us in total now over a BCF of processing capacity here in the DJ Basin. And we're working on building another BCF and a half. Between our O'Connor 2 plant, our Bighorn plant that is up to a BCF facility, we're making sure that we have enough processing capacity. At the same time, infrastructure in the midstream side is a lot more than just processing. So we're working with Tallgrass on building the Cheyenne Connector. We will be an owner in that pipeline. We are extending our NGL pipelines out of the Mid-Continent into the DJ Basin. So we have NGL transport in the Gulf Coast. We're part owner in Front Range and Texas Express. We're expanding those pipelines. We're also working on the Gulf Coast on making sure that there is enough fractionation capacity. Because yes, you may be able to get your product to the Gulf Coast, but then it needs to be fractionated. So together with Phillips 66, we're working on building the Sweeney 2 and Sweeney 3 fractionators, and we will take a 30% ownership in those. So throughout the industry, we're working on bottlenecks and how can we de-bottleneck the industry. We're doing that in the Permian as well. Together with Kinder Morgan, we're building Gulf Coast Express, which is the first long-haul new residue gas pipeline coming out of the Permian Basin. So tremendous amount of excitement of how we're changing the midstream infrastructure in the 16 states that we operate in. And at the same time, we're transforming our company. We're spending a lot of time, money, and effort on technology. We call it DCP 2.0, and completely changing and transforming how we work in a company and making it a digital enterprise. So there's a tremendous amount of fun things happening.
Great, thank you. Charlie?
Charlie Betrol with Curitin Midstream. Amy, thank you, and KOGA staff as well. Thank you for having us and putting on such a wonderful event here over the next couple of days. Curitin is a private equity-backed midstream company founded in 2016, and we're focused solely on the DJ. Today we're building out about 100 miles of gas, low and high pressure gathering systems, and we will be able to start processing about 20 million here at the end of the month. We are processing a little bit of gas today through some temporary units, and building a 60 million a day cryo, which will be coming online here later this year in November. So Curitin's backed by Tailwater Capital and Ares Management, two private equity firms, quite different, but been a great relationship working with both of them. And we really focus on trying to service kind of the gathering needs of the customers going to the wellhead and spending our capital there rather than having them, letting them preserve their capital to put it into the drill bit.
Great. Well, I want to open our panel discussion with what I call a lightning round question, which is where I ask that each of you keep your answers to just a one-word response, and then we can come back. Don't worry, I'll give you a chance to expound upon your answer. But if you had to pick the single biggest challenge facing your company when it comes to building out your product and infrastructure, what would that challenge be? Anybody can jump in first.
One word or one sentence?
One sentence.
Probably just timing of initial production, bringing on 24 wells or 12 wells, and you get 6 months of really high production. And then the next 25 years, you have a lot less. And solving that 6-month need, it's a struggle.
Crystal?
Timing across all sectors, and I think we all have much to say about that.
Bill?
Deciding whether we're going to do it internally or partner with somebody because of what Charlie mentioned.
Wouter?
I would say two, public perception. I think we're seeing a lot more of that, and I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about that. And then the second one would be timing and alignment with producers, giving the vastly different timeline and payback in our projects that we're having. So if you think about it, a producer, it takes a couple of months to permit a well and drill it, and you can move a drill rig around. If we're thinking about the Cheyenne connector that we're building, we got to go through FERC. That may be 18 or 24 months. Then you got to build on top of that. So the short term for us is 3 years. I think the short term for a producer is probably measured in months or in quarters. And I think that is one that you really got to figure out, how do you align those?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. We were talking backstage just about sort of the difficult balance you strike with what you just said, in particular about how you make a return on investment and how sometimes that doesn't always jive well with other parts of the industry. Charlie, looks like you might have a thought. If you wanted to chime in on this, I mean, how do you sort of strike that balance? And it sounds like that's something that you struggle with.
I'm just going to steal Wouter's words. It's our investments are 7 to 10 year paybacks, and producers are drilling wells and getting their money back in 6 to 12 months. And they're able to do it a lot quicker, whereas it takes us, as mentioned here, it can take, whether it's county or federal or state permitting, it can take 12 to 24 months to get permits and then build these facilities. And there's just a big gap there, and it's trying to find a balance and work with the producers to understand that and get it all built in time, but make sure that there's enough time to recoup the investment on the projects.
Bill, what goes through your mind in terms of why you decide to partner with another company versus doing something with your own company? What are the factors that you consider?
So as we think about it on the upstream side, obviously a single well can pay out in the timeframes we just talked about. However, you have to acquire properties, and as you think about when you're going to acquire those properties, is the marketing and the midstream there? How much capital will that take to build out, and how much capital did you put up front to buy the acreage position? And so our time horizon on a total upstream project can take 4 to 10 years as well, but it's always the next set of opportunities that we're looking to buy. Is there a market there or not? And how much capital is available. So we just put all those factors together.
Wouter, you mentioned public perception. Do you mean, what do you mean by that? Is it government, FERC, or is it more sort of local residents?
I think it's all of the above. I'm like, it is absolutely government. It is, FERC. At the same time, I think, let's talk about what we're going through here in the state of Colorado. There are a lot of things that are happening and potentially get on the ballot that are going to be fairly interesting. And so that, I think, is a huge piece at a higher level. If you start looking at it more at a local level, is how do we do business in the communities that we serve? We build infrastructure. We build large infrastructure. Neighbors, how do you deal with them? If you see what we're doing around our new plant that we're building, our Bighorn plant, which may be up to a BCF a day of capacity here in Colorado, we went to the middle of nowhere. We acquired a square mile of land because we want to make sure that we don't have any neighbors that are close by. We're working with our neighbors today in other places, and we're with them on a first-name basis. We're sitting at their kitchen table, make sure that they understand what we're doing, trying to make sure that some of the issues and concerns that they're seeing, how do we deal with them? How do we alleviate those? Denver is growing. Denver is growing pretty hard, pretty significantly, and in the end, you get oil and gas and general population that start commingling. And in the end,
I mean, the population has grown while oil and gas production has grown.
Yes.
Which I think is important because
which is a great thing, and I think we got to figure out how can we continue to do that, and we got to continue to do that by engaging people, by talking with them, by trying to figure out how we can get to 1 + 1 is 3, and ignoring people and saying, hey, we're the oil and gas industry and we're ignoring you. That is not the way you want to do it, and I don't think we're doing that at all. But there are definitely opportunities, especially for us, that are strategics, that will be here 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. How do you do this in the smartest way where people that live, work, and love Colorado and Denver and the oil and gas industry that is so important to the state can live and work together? And that's a lot of time we need to spend.
Let's talk a little bit about the Setback ballot initiative. I think most, or if not all of you, are pretty familiar with it, but it's likely to make the ballot, and it would impose a 2,500-foot setback from most structures and even certain environmentally sensitive areas. Can each of you briefly talk about what kind of impact that would have on your business? Bill?
Yes, as I said, we are focused on the rural areas, and some of the initiatives before had just talked about 2,500-foot setbacks from occupied structures. If that were the potential law, we would be only affected by 3% of our lands. However, as you mentioned, the definition of sensitive structures or sensitive areas, like an intermittent stream or something, puts into play a lot larger proportion of our acreage, not as high as the overall state of 85% of non-federal. Ours is about 70%. Now, we haven't re-engineered that and said, okay, what if we drill 3-mile laterals or that kind of stuff? So we'd mitigate the impact, plus we're trying to get a lot of permits ahead. So we're trying to plan for, making the ballot, but hopefully big industry effort to get it defeated.
Crystal?
Yes, so for Tallgrass being a bit further down the chain, we are impacted as all of our partners in the industry are impacted in their ability to move forward. I think we're all aware that the initiative has the potential to be nothing short of catastrophic to the energy industry. Personally, I think that our industry has a great challenge in front of them. We have done such a good job over the last several years, if we say since 1988, in advancing our technologies and making energy and everything that energy brings to our society so easily obtainable, and that the public does not even think about it. I don't know that we even necessarily think about it. So I love the tactics that are out there today to be energy proud. I think we need to be proud of the industry that we work in, not afraid to talk to our neighbors, talk to our family, talk to our children about how everything that they have in life comes out of our energy. It will transition over years, but I challenge you to ask your children to name one thing that they can think of that doesn't involve fossil fuels and obtaining that aspect, and just raise the awareness of the importance of fossil fuels in our environment today.
Wouter?
DJ is very important to us. At the same time, we're a $15 billion company, and the DJ probably makes up, it's less than 20% of our company, but it's a very, very important part of the company. So obviously the impact would not be great. At the same time, I'm kind of looking at this and you know, you heard the mayor talk about this, and he spoke about what the energy industry means for the city of Denver. If you take a look at the state of Colorado, it is $30 billion. It is 230,000 jobs. Mayor was talking about $200,000 average pay that people in Denver have, in the city of Denver, in the energy infrastructure. This is an incredibly important part of the economy. Former Secretary of the Interior, Ken Salazar, called this fundamentally unconstitutional. So, you know, and the good thing is, she said it may make the ballot or it goes on. We don't know yet. We're waiting for the gross count. Hopefully we'll see that later this week. At the same time, there's an alternative initiative that will go on the ballot, which is 108, that will protect people's property. If you all boil it down, I kind of look at what we're doing as an industry in the state. Great paying jobs, a huge part of this economy. We are lowering carbon emissions and making this state and the country cleaner. If you take all of that together, and I think Coloradans are a pretty good bunch of rational people, and I feel pretty good where this is going.
Charlie?
You know, to be blunt, it's concerning. I mean, if it were to pass as it is written today, which is, in my opinion, very unlikely, it is concerning for the state of Colorado and the oil and gas. For Curitin Midstream, we're a little bit on the eastern side of the basin, and it is a little more rural. But even with the intermittent streams and the parks and some of those lands, you know, we are materially affected. And I'd say that it has given our sponsors, it's made them pause and think about some of the, you know, our existing business. We have customers that we need to service, so nothing is changing there. But some of the larger initiatives that we have for 2019 and go forward, they are a little bit on pause right now. And, you know, I think it's put a lot of the state on pause, not just the DJ, but the San Juan and the Western Slope as well,
So I've been covering the fracking and setback issue here in Colorado for several years. I covered the press conference where Governor Hickenlooper stood up in the state capitol with Representative Polis to announce that the initiative at that time, a couple years ago, would not make the ballot, and there would instead be a task force. And, you know, and this issue keeps coming up. And so, you know, clearly there's a lot of discontent among the residents, and it's fueled in part by national environmental groups connecting local concerns with climate change, which is why I think it's important that the industry consider the public concerns about climate change. But can you talk about how the industry, and Crystal, you touched on this a little bit, but how can you as a company, as an industry, do better to communicate and to be a better partner in ways that can hopefully avoid sort of confrontations like this?
Yeah, for Tallgrass, you know, we pride ourselves on being a efficient and safe operator. We don't wait for regulation to tell us what the appropriate things are to do as far as our operations. We perform as a good neighbor in all of our operations across all of our pipelines. So that's what we do in our immediacy in day-to-day. And again, I think being involved in organizations such as COGA, who are bringing this message out as to the impacts that this could have to our state, to all of our companies, and again, it's challenging, and I think that, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think we all just need to take this initiative to heart and personally bring this message out into our communities as to the benefits of oil and gas in our state.
Wouter, you were sort of hinting at this. You talked about public perception. I would argue that public perception is public reality. So how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think as an industry, we have a great opportunity in how we engage with the public. And I think we can all collectively do a much better job and should do a much better job around it. So let's give an example. And let's stay here in Denver. Denver is growing, it's bursting at the seams. People are complaining about transportation. So we all talk about, hey, we need to do something about our roads, about our highway system, about our public transportation. And when we need to build new roads, and we all agree that we need to do that, we all know that comes with some trade-offs and with some issues. There is noise, there is dust, there is light, there are emissions. Unfortunately, accidents happen on the road. But at the same time, that road system is what we need, and we all agree with the trade-offs on that. Every morning when we go to work, when all of you, clicked your seatbelt in and decided to come here, you are accepting the trade-offs that comes with building those roads. For the energy industry, it's no difference. We need pipelines, we need transmission lines to move our electrons, to move our molecules. And we got to talk about what are the trade-offs and what are the benefits, because all of you want to make sure that your iPhone is charged in the morning. And when it's 90 degrees here this afternoon, everybody wants to turn up their AC and make sure that the AC works and you got electricity to do that. By the way, if you think about transporting molecules via the pipeline system, there is no safer way to do that. So I think for all of us, making sure that we communicate with people in an open manner, in an authentic manner, in a manner where we talk about the trade-offs, we acknowledge the trade-offs, but also talk about the benefits. And I think we all got to do more of that.
Bill and Charlie, any comments about how you think the industry could be always improving?
I generally try and have conversations with people, whether it's on the plane or different things, but we had a lot of this as we went through our county, and we continue to go through these permitting processes for facilities, for compressor stations and processing facilities. There's a big public outreach component, certain boundaries that we have to reach, and we extend beyond those. And at those meetings, I generally try and educate the people. Same thing we're talking about here. I just think that there's such a misperception of what is driving this world. Everything, and everybody in this room knows it. We're all in the energy business, but everything is trucked, everything is transported. It's all using fuels. The majority of the products that we have, materials and goods, they're all energy and electricity. Let me go plug in my Tesla. We know how your Tesla was powered, right? It's powered by the power plant that burns natural gas. I mean, that's just the fact. And so we spend a lot of time at these outreaches trying to communicate people about this, how great the need is, and how much they're actually touching it. It's not just when you go to the pump and put gasoline or diesel in your vehicle. It's when you turn on your thermostat in your AC or your lights or anything. And how do we, I don't know the answer on how you get that out there to the mass public, because a lot of times it feels like I don't want to, listen to anything, right? It's just a wall, but so solutions are harder, the problems are easier to identify.
I think there's an opportunity for us too. I'm like, hey, we're in the fossil fuel business. Well, that's not very exciting, fossil fuels. We're doing hydrocarbons. I'm like, when people ask me, so what do you do for a living? I always say I'm in the quality of life business. And that gets a conversation going. And in the end, that is what all of us here and all of you are doing. We're in the quality of life business. We make lives better. And by the way, we're doing it in a way that is really, really safe. And there's times that things happen and there are accidents that happen. And we shouldn't allow that. We should make sure that that doesn't happen. And I think as an industry, we're really, really good in having safe operations, given the output that we're having. If you compare my example that I earlier gave to the road system, and you think about the tragedy that happens on roads every single day versus what happens in the oil and gas industry, I think we're doing a pretty darn good job, and we should be proud of that. Quality of life business.
I want to remind everybody out there in the audience that we are taking questions, so don't be shy, and the note cards on your table are for questions, and raise your hand, and there's COGA staffers being on the lookout for that, and so I would love to get a question or two in. But as a reporter, I'm never short of questions, so I will keep the conversation going. There is one up here in the front. I want to talk a little bit about Washington. I remarked to the mayor and the others, he asked me how it is in DC, and I said it's not smoky, but it is still swampy. So I do live and breathe the Washington, DC life, and before we were going on stage, I heard some talk amongst you guys about FERC. How is the federal, to the extent that you deal with FERC and other federal agencies, do you notice, is it faster than it was under the previous administration? What kind of concerns do you have there?
You want to take that?
Yes, I'll take that. We're in the primary FERC group here. We're not seeing that it's faster. I do believe that there is a general, they're carrying the general message to support infrastructure, but the uncertainty in DC and the various initiatives that have been put on FERC are generally slowing things down. There are a number of policy questions occurring at the moment. The FERC is taking fast action, in our opinion, not pausing long enough to really digest all of the input from the industry, and making decisions that may be difficult to balance. And there's enough uncertainty in our industry, as we alluded to initially, in the different sectors and the timing associated, productions timeline, midstream timeline, processing timeline, pipeline timeline. All of that is enough uncertainty. And then to have the political uncertainty as well is just putting a huge damper on the whole process. We are all professionals. We are all continuing to move forward. But those are questions that we all have to face, that producers have to think about when they commit. Are these projects going to get approved? And the fact that if they are delayed or not approved, how that impacts their business. So there's just a lot of uncertainty at the moment.
Is it slower than the last administration?
I think it's a bit soon to tell from my perspective, but anytime various uncertainty is brought into the FERC arena, they have an obligation to consider all the aspects. So a lot has come out recently. They had a backlog. Many projects have come out. We're in a situation now where we're short a commissioner, and the divergent aspects of the two sides are going to create probably some additional delays at this point.
Yeah, I would say, like at the federal level, we have probably on our side seen things getting a little bit more constructive, a little bit easier. At the same time, this tends to be a swing of the pendulum. So what happens then is you're just seeing things that potentially at the state level can get a little bit more difficult. And you're seeing it here in Colorado, we're seeing it in New Mexico, we're seeing it at local levels in Oklahoma and in other places around the country. So net, I think it is about the same.
Let's look around the country a little bit. Just the other day, I think yesterday, the Virginia governor was recommended to pull permits to 2 major natural gas pipelines in that state. And New England, a little further north, we're seeing even more pipeline backlogs. What kind of sort of lessons learned or things have you seen be successful in other regions of the country, or on the opposite end, such as in Virginia, challenges that you hope to be avoiding here in Colorado?
I think I go back to what I said earlier. We talk a lot about if you don't have a seat at the table, you may find yourself on the menu. So we spend a lot of time talking with people, trying to be upfront, talk to neighbors. So if we have hearings, be it local or be it somewhere else, we want to make sure that we don't ignore all the stakeholders. You've got to get all the stakeholders with you as early as possible versus ignoring them. So it takes a tremendous amount of communication. It takes at times things that we have to do financially to make sure that people don't stare at a gas plant out of their backyard. And I think that is reasonable, and we work around it. So it's a tremendous amount of communication and working with the public to understand how you can coexist. So it goes back to what I said earlier.
Great. We do have one audience question, so thank you to that brave audience member. Are any of your companies delaying investments or investment decisions until the outcome of the ballot initiative is known?
So we have some very big investment decisions ahead of us here in Colorado, probably to the tune of well over $1 billion. We haven't delayed the Mewborn plant that we just brought online. We actually sped it up. We have sped up and expanded our Connor 2 plant that we're building. So that's another 300 million a day that comes online in the second quarter. We are moving full steam ahead of our Bighorn plant, which is a BCF. So we are spending probably $50 million on long lead time equipment and things to keep it on a timeline to come online in the first quarter of 2020. We're not slowing down the Cheyenne connector. We're not slowing down the expansion that we're doing on our NGL pipelines. At the same time, there are going to be some decisions made in the first week of November, potentially, where we have to say, okay, are you going to adjust this or not? So for now, as I said earlier, I feel cautiously optimistic that Coloradans will do the right things at the ballot box if and when 97 goes on the ballot. But at the same time, we also have shareholders, and we got to make sure that we work with our shareholders. So full steam ahead, right here, right now, and hopefully this is all going the right direction, so we don't have to course correct.
What about the other three? Just very quickly, a yes or no, and an elaborated yes if you are, but delaying investment decisions.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this on the existing business, existing customers. No, we're full steam ahead on all of that. On some of the expansion things that we are looking at, they will definitely be on pause. I mean, a lot of them have very small dollars being invested today, so those are, but there will be definitely a pause in the decision until the November election and determining how that all shapes up.
And consistent answer from us, we're full speed ahead on connector, same investment, not taking our foot off the pedal at all. The influence of others in the basin, pausing to see what happens will have an impact on us, but our investments are going forward.
And Bill?
Yes, we're still running 3 rigs and continue to look at it that way. We are looking at other opportunities to add acreage to our position and continue to evaluate it.
Great. Well, on that note, I want to say thank you so much to the panelists and to the audience for joining in the discussion.
Thanks.
Thanks, Amy.